Thought Bubble Audio.
Look, up in the sky!
You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Welcome to Beer with Geeks with Tim and Frank.
Who are you?
I'm Batman.
I am Iron Man.
Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Hi, Christopher. I'm Nero.
My name is Inigo Montoya.
You're a wizard, Harry.
A couple of guys with a couple of beers and a whole lot of pop culture nostalgia.
Make it so, number one.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
Name the dog, Indiana.
Life finds a way.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Now sit back and crack open a cold one, because it's time for Beer with Geeks.
It comes in pints?
Shaken, not stirred.
Great Scott!
I was way off. I knew it started with an S, though.
Hi, and welcome to Beer with Geeks, where two geeks geek out with beer. I'm Tim, and with me, as always, is my adamantium-filled friend Frank. How are you today?
I'm feeling metal. I'm feeling totally metal, bro.
You gonna shred on that guitar? You gonna shred? I want to call you the shredder.
Yeah, I just make paper into little strips.
Oh, no, man. The Shredder's Ninja Turtles thing.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. Wow. All right.
My friend, let me tell you, it has been a day.
It's been a day.
It's
All
been
right.
a day.
Well, sit back, my friend, and tell me what you're drinking.
So I haven't had a lot of Harpoon Winter Warmer this season, but I'm enjoying that right now. It's a classic. It's tried and true, and I rather like it.
Oh, fantastic! I am drinking Omission still. I got some more. I got some more of it because it is delicious, and I like the low gluten thing. It makes my pants fit better.
Yeah, your pants look good.
Thank you. Actually, these are new. Thank you for asking.
Sure. Yeah.
Yep. That's how that happened. So, Frank, you've had quite a day.
I have.
It's been a day. Well, you know who's had a life?
Uh-oh.
Wolverine.
That guy, man.
Just the animal, not the guy. What are you doing?
Oh.
You're so confusing, Frank. We're talking about animals. This is a show about animals.
Is there Kratz Creatures episode?
I could do it. But it's not.
Frank,
we're gonna talk about Wolverine. This weekend is the launch of Hugh Jackman's last outing as the character of Wolverine, otherwise known as Logan. I have no last name, and so otherwise known as James Howlett, his real name. It's a lot of names being dragged through the mud here, Frank. So I, by this time this episode coming out, I've actually already have seen Logan. Are you planning on
travel?
Time travel. Are you planning on seeing Logan?
Yes, I am.
Yes, yeah, because you're not a big X-Men guy.
No, I'm really not. But I try to keep up with the movies.
Yeah. Movies are good. Some of them. Actually, some of the worst ones are the Wolverine movies. So I thought I would kind of just regale you with some Wolverine knowledge, some Wolverine facts that I have in my old brain ski, and see what you like about it. This is not a hit me with your best shot, though. I don't think a lot of people need to be sold on Wolverine.
No,
he's an insanely popular character, but honestly, he's not even one of my favorite characters. When I was a kid, I always liked Cyclops more than Wolverine.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, my brother liked Wolverine a lot, though. He was, when you wish upon a star, when you do that when you're a kid.
Yes.
Have you ever wished? Yes. Don't roll your eyes at me.
I was like, where are you going with this? Yes, I do know.
Okay, so I have a very distinct memory of being very young, wishing upon a star with my brother, and he wished for the claws of Wolverine, and I wished for the optic blasts of Cyclops. We did not get them. Spoiler for my life.
Stupid
because
stars.
that star was already that star was already millions of years dead, and so just like my dreams and wishes.
Yeah, probably true.
Yeah. Oh, well, thanks for your support.
Science.
So what do you know about the old Wolverine?
Well, I know that he has a very interesting haircut. I always knew that he was a little fella, but with a heart of gold. No, definitely not a heart of gold.
No, he's definitely got a heart of gold. Absolutely.
Yeah,
sorta. No, he does. He's got a heart of gold.
All right.
He wants to hide it. He's pretending he doesn't, but he's definitely got a heart of gold.
Feelings are stupid. I don't like you. You're whatever. I'm gonna claw you now.
Yep, that's Wolverine in a nutshell.
Yep.
That you nailed it.
Yep.
So Wolverine actually started out as a nemesis for the Hulk. I don't know if you know this. Hulk. He first appearing in Hulk 181, where he is sent to. Wolverine is a agent of the Canadian government, the shadiest government in all of comics.
Yes.
But really, the Canadian government in Marvel Comics is ridiculously evil. And so Wolverine is sent to. I can't remember this correctly. He's either sent to hunt the Wendigo or he's sent to hunt the Hulk. But either way, there's a fight between the Hulk and Wolverine and the Wendigo. And at that point, he wasn't an X-Men. He wasn't a mutant. Like, there really wasn't anything about him. He was just in his yellow and blue costume invented by Len Wein, and he had little whiskers on the sides.
Basically, they had an idea. They were like, what if it was this guy who had giant claws? And
yeah,
and that
basically,
was kind of where
it was even like they could have been coming out of his gloves. Like, the people had no idea. They just didn't think that far. And so when Giant Size X-Men was coming out with a little bit of a relaunch from Len Wein, was that Len Wein and Dave Cockrum? I think that's right. But either way, Wolverine was then included in there, and they modeled his hair after his mask, which is nice. I guess his hair is weird. I don't even know how that works. I don't even know how that works.
You must use a lot of product.
It's just like one big cowlick, Frank. It's a big, it's a big cowlick.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there was original they thought maybe he would be like a teenager of a character, and then they drew him, and they were like, nah,
no way.
Nah, he's middle aged for sure. And so the origin of Wolverine is so convoluted. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
For so long, he was a very mysterious guy. Didn't really have a past. We barely knew anything about him. And now in comics history, we know almost everything about him, which kind of loses the mystique of the character. It's even where like the first Origins movie really goes awry. The X-Men Origins Wolverine. It's like it's a little nonsense. That is a movie made by committee. Have you seen it?
X-Men Origins Wolverine. Yeah. I love how Fox tries to pretend that the problem with the movie is that it got illegally downloaded too early. It's like, oh no, you didn't see the finished product though. It was the effects weren't done. And
I totally forgot about that.
That's totally the problem, you guys. There's nothing wrong with the movie itself. It's your fault. It's the pirates. You wouldn't download a car. Wait, I don't know. That's like that's their whole thing. But yeah, it's a little bit of it's a cluster.
Oh my God, that movie is nonsense. It actually has some nice moments. Like, it's got some good whatevers in it. But for the most part, it just does not make any sense. It like hops from one thing to the next and time jumps too much, and it doesn't line up with it doesn't original. Like, it was really the first movie to be like, continuity. Pfft, who needs that?
Yeah.
Can't spell the word. Why use it?
Well,
Yeah.
the idea was that they were going to do a series of them, X-Men Origins, and have a bunch of characters.
Yeah, it was going to be Wolverine. If it was successful, they were going to do X-Men Origins Magneto,
Right.
which eventually just became X-Men First Class.
Right.
Because the whole X-Men Origins Magneto was going to be Magneto as a Nazi hunter, hunting down people who murdered his family in the Holocaust, and that is actually a component of First Class. So in some ways, we still kind of got it in some ways.
And First Class was just a masterpiece.
Oh, it's so good. It's the best one.
So good. It is the best one still. Yep. Even Days of Future Past, while very good, still
it's not First Class.
It's not First Class. That was, as somebody who doesn't even really care for the X-Men very much, I was like, this is so good. Like, it's just
X-Men First Class makes you care about the X-Men.
It's just a good story, and the characters are really like unique. Each of them, like they are just really well written and well distinguished from one another.
Mm-hmm.
To where you're just like, yes, this is great, even if you don't typically care about these stories. Like, this makes you care.
I agree. Its use of the Cuban Missile Crisis, this historiographic metafiction, what's real and what's not real, and it's so good. Every character has they all feel separate from one another, but everyone actually serves a purpose. Even like very minor characters, you feel like are there for a reason. Yeah, what a good movie. I haven't watched it in a long time.
Me neither.
And Wolverine is still in that movie.
Yeah.
There's that nice little scene where Professor X and Magneto go to the bar, and they're like, "Hey, could we talk to you about?" And he's like, "Go." You see what I did there for you, Frank?
Thank you.
I censored myself, even though I was just going to quote a movie.
How funny would it be if I just put in the R2D2 bleep anyway, even though you didn't actually curse? And they wouldn't know. They wouldn't know until right now if that's what happened.
I hope you do, just so I can go back and listen and laugh. I laugh like that, Frank. I don't know if you knew that about me.
Strange.
I don't laugh like that. So anyway, know who doesn't laugh like that either? Wolverine, because he doesn't have a lot to laugh about.
Doesn't really laugh much at all.
No. So do you know the origin of him? Like the kid, how he started? I was born James Howlett. Do you know any of that?
Regale me.
I will regale you, Frank.
There are gaps in my knowledge,
my friend, to the tale of Paul Revere. No,
for the sake of my geek cred, I feel like I need to explain. There are gaps in my knowledge.
Just like the gaps of memory in Logan's brain.
Ayo.
I see what you did there. So as I was saying before, like, Logan is a mysterious fish. We're not really sure a lot of where he came from or what he did. We know he spent some time in Japan. We knew that his healing factor slows his age, so his aging process, so he's a little older. But we weren't sure how much, but it turns out he's really old. He knew Captain America from World War II,
mm-hmm.
but it's unexplained why he was there or anything like that. It's good stuff. So Marvel chief creative officer, then Marvel editor-in-chief Joe Quesada said, "Hey, let's go backwards and tell the origin of Wolverine." So it turns out that Wolverine, it was a kid originally named James Howlett, and he was born roughly in, I want to say mid 1800s, if I remember correctly, and he was a sickly little boy. Actually, this is where X-Men the Origins movie actually gets it kind of right, just this tiny little bit, and he was a sick kid, and when his powers manifested with some terrible tragedy, and he has bone claws, even though the adamantium put into a skeleton was supposed to just be the claws, but now he has bone claws too, for reasons. And he kind of just grows up in this wanderlust kind of way, because he ages slowly. Pretty much everyone around him dies.
Sad life.
It's a really sad life. and so he kind of just meanders about for years and years and years and years. Eventually winds up the important crux of his story winds up part of a secret government. He's Canadian, if you didn't know that. Winds up a secret government part of this agency, the Weapon X program. And so where he was kind of like a super soldier agent for them, but he's got a healing factor. So, you could send him into the field with a gun and be like, okay, you'll be fine. He doesn't really need anything else, but the story varies greatly depending, like his origin gets retconned so much that, the agreed upon, I guess, one by a lot of people is that he volunteered for this program, for the Weapon X program, and they encased his bones in adamantium, the hardest man-made metal in Marvel Comics. Not reflective like vibranium. It's kind of, adamantium is very heavy. I believe his is the 9th version of it or something like that. And with all these experiments also comes memory loss. Part of that being part of this shady government agency. And so he does that for a while, and then eventually quits and joins the X-Men. And then he does there's some stuff in Japan where he has a great love, and then and then death happens, and then some death doesn't happen. And it's all very hush hush under the table, Frank. I can't really talk anymore about it.
Can I ask a question, Professor?
Sure.
Does, generally speaking, in today's continuity, is this supposed to have happened before or after Captain America, before or after the Super Soldier project?
Oh, you mean getting his adamantium and stuff like that?
Yes, yeah. The whole experiment.
That happens after. So Captain America is still really the first super soldier.
Okay.
And so you don't get. I want to say. See, it's a little confusing because Marvel works on a sliding timeline, right? That everybody's been the Marvel universe, how it's existed, has basically been around for 10 years. So the Fantastic Four have been, Fantastic Fouring for 10 years. Spider-Man's been Spider-Man for 10 years. Iron Man's been Iron Man for 10 years. And it kind of just slides up the scale that way.
Right. But so 5 years from, just for people to understand, 5 years from now, it will still have been 10 years. Right,
exactly. And so, and he kind of just, the big stories matter, the smaller ones don't really matter. Like a lot of times people find it like, how can so many stories fit into that amount of time? But so let's say let's take a big story that I'm thinking about. See, now I'm lost for one now that I think about it. Okay, so let's take Green Lantern Blackest Night, for instance. Okay, so that's a story that lasted months and months and months and months in the comics, right? And the tie-ins and this and that. It's one night,
right, right.
Or Crisis on Infinite Earths, or Infinite Crisis, or from the Marvel side, Civil War, or Infinity Gauntlet, or whatever. Like these stories take a month to a year to tell, but they can take place in the span of hours. So like one big giant event can happen, and then next few days another big giant event can happen. That's just the world that they live in. And so a lot of this stuff can take place, can fit into a 10-year timeline. So it makes as much sense as it can.
It's comic book logic. You have to just go with it at a certain point.
It doesn't really matter.
Yeah. You can try to make it work, and sometimes it does, but even if it doesn't, you just got to roll with it.
Right. And so for Logan, so for the purposes of Logan, for Wolverine, or for Captain America, still always exists in World War II. So even though we're been on a sliding 10-year timeline, he was awakened, originally, 15 years out of World War II, and then 20, and then 25, and then 30, because we keep getting further and further away from World War II, because that's how time works. So, but for Logan, I want to say it's still in the 70s. This happened in the 70s to him, this Weapon X program, because he's kind of a Cold War soldier. Like it's all those operations with Weapon X are all Cold War stuff. And so you can kind of like World War, like with Captain America World War II, you can kind of mark Logan around the same time. And so, but I mean, his time with the X-Men is the most. We get a lot of solo Wolverine stories, but his time with the X-Men is the most famous. That's why he's an important character.
I mean, he and Cyclops and like Jean Grey are like probably the most well-known members of the X-Men, and Professor X, of course. Wouldn't you say?
Wolverine, Cyclops, Jean Grey, Professor X.
Pretty much, those are.
I think it honestly depends on who you talk to. Really,
I guess that's true because they're different eras. Yeah,
they're different, and it all depends on how people are introduced to these characters, right? If you're introduced to them by like the one episode of the cartoon in the 80s, X-Men, when Wolverine was Australian, and
he is again, in a way.
In a weird way, he is again. You are correct. Hugh Jackman is Australian.
Why is his Ackman so huge?
Because he's that was good. I can't come back from that. If you're introduced to that, then you meet Nightcrawler and Colossus and Dazzler, and like maybe those are your famous X-Men, or if you grew up in the 90s with that cartoon, or if your first introduction is X-Men First Class, then all of a sudden you're like Banshee and Beast and Mystique, and they're all. So it just depends on. But I think above all of that, Wolverine is the most famous X-Men, even though he wasn't in the original lineup.
Yeah, it's true. He's kind of a common thread these days, for the last couple decades. I was about to say, like, in the Chris Claremont era, as if there was, like, one Chris Claremont era.
Oh, you mean that era that lasted about 20
years? Yeah.
Yeah. So people who don't know, Chris Claremont was the writer on X-Men for many of its books for decades.
He was writing 3-4 books at a time for 20 years, all X-Men.
He was the classic lineup or classic X-Men stories that people know or get adapted or whatever else, most of them come from him. His stuff is really good. Chris Claremont is responsible for strong female characters in comics, and because there's Wonder Woman and stuff like that, but the way that Wonder Woman's history starts, it's she's very strong and independent, but then once Marston left the book, then she became basically Steve Trevor's girlfriend, and she really struggled with that for a while. And so when Chris Claremont came on the X-Men, and we get Storm and Kitty Pryde and Emma Frost, and these strong female characters that are in a lot of ways even more important to the X-Men than a lot of the men. Chris Claremont was responsible for shaping modern comics, not just in X-Men, but just in general. It's so good, Frank. I love comic history. I love it so much. That was derailed. I got derailed. It got derailed somehow talking about the Chris Claremont instead of Wolverine. Do you have a favorite Wolverine costume? I know that you have a few in your head.
The one that's blue and yellow.
You're a blue and yellow fan, eh?
Yeah. I do, because that's what I first picture when I think because when we were kids growing up, that was what was on the toy shelves, and on TV it was on the shelves. So that's what I know best is the blue and yellow. Look.
My first one was the red and brown and yellow costume. That was the first one we even had. My brother had a costume of that growing up. It was we just to the cusp before it went back to the yellow, because he started in yellow and blue, and then in the 90s he went to it was the brown one, and then it went back to the yellow. Maybe it was the 80s. It was brown. It might have been the 80s, but either way, I think I like the brown one. I like the brown one more. Though there's some other cool ones. His X-Force gear, his black and gray one looks pretty cool. Whatever it is, it's got to fit his hair. It's got to have the wings out on the hair.
That's true.
Yeah.
The hair is critical.
The hair is super critical. And then there's always Dark Claw, which is fantastic. We've talked about Dark Claw before, right?
I'm not sure.
Okay, so Frank, listen up. So in the 90s, there's this thing, DC and Marvel did this thing called the Amalgam Universe.
Yes.
In which so you know what I'm talking about. So they combined a DC hero and a Marvel hero and smushed them together. And so Wolverine's was Batman and Wolverine combined into Dark Claw. And he was basically Wolverine's costume with Batman's cape.
Okay.
With Batman's color palette and a cape, and you've basically got Dark Claw, which was good stuff. Good stuff. I loved Dark Claw. He fought the Hyena, which was Sabretooth with the Joker's like colored
That's brilliant. The laughing thing.
The laughing thing. Yeah, it's pretty good.
So good.
It's pretty good. So they didn't run for. I mean, the Amalgam didn't run for a long time. But they had other ones. Captain America and Superman combined were Super Soldier.
Right.
You kind of looked at Captain America, but the shield he carried around had the Superman S
on it. Yeah,
there was a whole mix of stuff. But Dark Claw, I think, because it's Batman and Wolverine, some of the two most popular characters ever created for comics combined together, had a bit of a second series called The Adventures of Dark Claw, which was modeled after the Batman animated series. So it looked like Bruce Timm. It looked like Bruce Timm's artwork, but with the Dark Claw. It was great. It's all. I mean, you can find the stuff on Google. It's fantastic. But Wolverine has had. It's a really confusing mix of history. The X-Men is just a cluster of continuity and history as it is, but Wolverine somehow outmatches all of that. Like he can even the worst of his continuity, like maybe he's not a mutant at all, but he's like a descendant of wolves instead, and there's some weird stuff in there, really weird stuff. But people just classic comics, you don't like something, you change it. It's good. The movie, and Hugh Jackman, despite being 6'1" instead of like the 5'5" that Wolverine is supposed to be, has just been a gem in the X-Men movies all the way through. So I'm really pumped for Logan. It looks good. I've heard it's really a good swan song for him and for X-Men films, and like this is possibly I've heard a lot of it's the Dark Knight for the X-Men universe, or it's a Marvel movie for people who hate Marvel banner movies. So, which I do not. I do not hate Marvel movies at all.
Right.
But I'm really looking forward to it. It seems a little continuity free too, so I think you can kind of enjoy it just for the heck of it.
I look forward to like just like the banter between Logan and Charles.
Me too. I've heard there's quite a few F-bombs dropped by everybody in this movie. It is definitely an R movie. And that includes the professor.
Yeah. I would sort of expect that, to be honest, if they're going that direction. I would sort of expect that it would be like equal opportunity swearing. Yeah. Equal opportunity R2D2 beeps.
There you go. And I mean, we've heard the professor and Wolverine swear in these movies before, but I don't know if I can handle the adultness. I probably will. I don't really care.
I think you'll be fine.
Swearing just goes one ear and out the other. I work with the teenagers, Frank. It goes one in an ear and out the other.
Well, I'm looking forward to it.
I am too. That was a real runaround. I did not get very specific into the Wolverine story. But people can check it out if they want. There's some great stories out there. Old Man Logan is great. Weapon X is great. The Frank Miller stuff is really good. Enemy of the State is really good, where Wolverine is brainwashed by I think it's the Hand or Hydra, I can't remember, and he just goes on a killing spree, and it is pretty awesome. It's pretty good. It's Mark Millar and John Romita Jr. It's good stuff.
Ooh, okay. Hey.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. I'm pretty sure Comixology right now, or at when the day we were recording this, was having Wolverine sales.
Makes
so
sense.
I'm pretty sure you can go on and get it there. But or support your local comic book shop or bookstore, which I always approve of. So, Frank, I think that's it for me. I think this has been a mediocre conversation on Wolverine at best.
No, you can't even listen. The whole point of this show is that we sit down, we have a beer, and we talk about stuff, and that's exactly what we did.
This is true. This is true, Frank. I agree with things that you say. So you can find us on our website, beerwithgeeks.com, or Gmail, Twitter, and Facebook at Beer with Geeks. You can find us on the iTunes and Google Play and Overcast and Satchel and all other places, and Google Play and Alexa now. Amazon. You can find us in all these places. We love iTunes reviews. We would love it if you leave them, even though iTunes has had the reviews out of order, and so they're all meshed up. So if you write one, I unfortunately, until they fix it, can't read it out loud because it's tough to track down to see what order they come in. But when that happens, I will read your review out loud. 5 stars, very helpful getting the word out there. You can also find Frank and I on our other podcast, Supergirl TV Talk, where we talk about CW's hit show Supergirl. You can also find Frank and his wife Marissa on The Market Is Next Door, where they discuss the social media happenings of the world. Check out all of that stuff. That was a good ramble. Frank, I say until next time, cheers.